this video, we will reverse our knowledge on how to graph a function, and we'll learn how to find the equation of the function given the graph. Let's observe the following graph. We can notice that the graph has a sine curve. So the equation of the graph will be in the form y equals k plus a times sine of bx plus c. Let's identify coefficients a, b, c, and k. To help us with this process, I'm going to draw a frame to separate one complete cycle of the graph, the interval where the graph is not repeating. The amplitude of the sine graph can be found by the formula 1/2 of the absolute value between the maximum point and the minimum point of the graph. So we can find the amplitude by using this equation or just by observing the graph. It ranges from -1 to 5, so a half of this distance is 3. A equals 3. The period of the graph is pi, so we can find coefficient b from the equation period is equal to pi over b. Pi equal to pi over b. Multiply both sides of the equation by b to get rid of the denominator. B times pi equal to pi. Divide both sides by pi. B is equal to. So we have coefficient A, coefficient B. Now let's find coefficient C. Coefficient C identifies the horizontal shift of the graph. The graph has no phase shift, so coefficient C is equal to 0. And finally, coefficient K that identifies the vertical shift of the graph. We can observe that the graph shifted 2 units up, so K is equal +2. Let's now transfer the coefficients that we found into the general form of the sine equation. Y equals 2 plus 3 sine. Coefficient B is equal to x, and coefficient C is equal to 0. Here's the equation of this graph. Y equals 2 plus 3 sine of 2x. Now let's observe the graph from the second example. There are a few ways we can approach this graph. If we look at the graph from x equal -0.5 to x equals 1, it looks like a sine curve reflected about the x-axis and shifted a half units to the left horizontally. If you look at the graph from x equals 0 to x equals 1.5, it looks like a cosine graph, also reflected about the x-axis. Remember that sine and cosine are cofunctions, meaning that sine x equals cosine of 90 degree minus x, and vice versa. So let's find the equation of this graph both in sine and cosine forms. Let's start with the sine form we're already familiar with. Y equals k plus a times sine of bx plus c, and identify the coefficients. We can see from the graph that the amplitude is 5. Since the graph has been reflected about the x-axis, a will be -5. The period is 2 from -0.5 to +1.5. So we can use the equation period equals 2 pi over b to find coefficient b. 2 is equal to pi over b. Multiply both sides by b. b times 2 equals 2 pi. Therefore, b is equal pi. So we have coefficient A, coefficient B. Let's find coefficient C and coefficient K. From the graph, we can see that the phase shift is -0.5. So we can use the equation phase shift equals -c over b to find coefficient C. -0.5 equals -c divided by pi. Multiply both sides by -1 and by pi, c is equal 0.5. There is no vertical translation, so coefficient k is equal 0. The equation that describes this graph in the sine form is y equals -5 sine of pi x plus pi over 2. Let's now look at the same graph from the cosine perspective. General form of the cosine graph is y equals k plus a cosine bx plus c. The amplitude is equal 5, and because the graph is reflected about x-axis, a is equal -5. Period equal 2, so we can find coefficient b. b equals pi. There is no horizontal shift in this graph, so c is equal 0. There is no vertical translation as well, so coefficient k is also equal 0. So the equation that describes this graph in the cosine form is y equals -5 cosine pi x. Now let's compare the equation of this graph in the sine form that we found before. Y equals -5 sine of pi x plus pi over 2. We can notice that the two equations are different by the phase shift of pi over 2. And we can observe it by looking at the graph as well. Because remember, sine and cosine are cofunctions. So sine of x equal to cosine of 90 degrees minus x, or we can say cosine x is equal sine of 90 degrees minus x. So the difference in the graphs will be 90 degrees or pi over 2. I hope that was helpful. For more videos, check my YouTube channel. I sort all the videos in the playlist by the topic.